Hello. So today we will dive into the specifics of Indian economy. They have given you a lot of information. Number one, okay, first of all, I would like to tell you how I have prepared to communicate the most important points in this topic. So I have taken this entire syllabus, that is this entire topic 10, okay, and I have read through each and every line, and I have highlighted the most important words or numbers or topics. Okay, so here I will be explaining the highlighted portions to you. You can take your book before I start to explain. Turn to this page. What's the page number? Yeah, 10th chapter, page number 1. So you just take that, and then I will start explaining all the highlighted portions. Okay, so we will be having around, I think I have highlighted around some 120 or 130 words or numbers. That's all. Initially, I thought at least 10 lines or 10 numbers would be required from every page. So from 200 to from 20 or 23 pages, it would come to around 230 numbers or words or important significant portions, but it is not so. It's very simple. For the first 10 pages, the highlighted areas are very meager. Only in the last 10 pages, we have some amount of highlighted ones, because in the last 10 pages we are coming across the different schemes brought out by the how do you call the central government, and what is the achievement that India has done in the last 20 or 30 years. So when we are reading the last 10 pages of this chapter, we come across the achievements in terms of number, in terms of the production capacity and all that. But for the first 10 pages or 12 pages, we are coming across only the history, and here and there only certain highlighted portions are there. So you can be rest assured that the 5 marks from this topic, okay, if you read around some 100 1 mark, that's all. From that 5 1 marks is definitely is supposed to come. So all the highlighted ones you try and remember. I'll also tell you one technique for you to understand this one, okay, because 5 marks is not a joke. Okay, you really have to put in whatever you have, all the efforts to secure this 5 marks, because this 5 marks is very easy comparatively with all the other papers. For example, imagine securing 5 marks in mathematics or accounting. It takes a lot of practice, effort, understanding of concepts, everything. But here the securing of 5 marks, it only depends upon remembering 100 points, that's all. So here we have 20 pages, and just if you read these 20 pages for some 5 or 6 times, you will develop an expertise in understanding and in remembering the highlighted portions. But even if you don't have time, don't worry. All the highlighted portions, if you take, for example, only 5 to 10 1 marks, that is only 5 to 10 highlighted points every day. If you just read, you don't have to mug up or hit your head. Okay, you just have to take 5 points and then revise it for a day, and then for the next day you take different 5 points from this chapter. So you make it a point that you have only 100 points. Out of this 100 points, definitely there's going to be 5 marks, which means it's worth the effort. Okay, you're just going to invest 10 days for this, and 10 days, how many minutes you're going to spend? You're only going to spend 5 minutes per day for 10 days. So this will fetch you 5 marks. So every day in the morning, what you're supposed to do, all the highlighted portions I will teach you now. What you are supposed to do as a homework or as a preparation effort for the examination, what you're supposed to do, you have to take and write all the highlighted portions. Maybe 100 points would come, that's all. So all the 100 points you have to write. So just date it. Every 5 points should be dated. For example, if you're starting your revision from May 15th, this May 15th you're starting this 100 points revision, would be just state May 15th 5 points. What are the 5 points you have to read on May 15th? Take that on May 15th, okay, morning, just 5 minutes, that's all. Within 5 minutes you can read that. You don't have to remember, you don't have to by heart it, you don't have to memorize it. That is not necessary at all. What you're supposed to do in the morning, the first thing that you see is only these 10 points or 5 points, that's all. Take 1 minute for every line, that's all. Take 5 minutes and read those 5 lines. You will definitely understand the lines, because I'm already explaining it to you here. And then once you see it there, yeah, it's fine. So on May 16th, what you're supposed to do, the next 5 points you have to see. Okay, when you see this 5 points, that is from point number 6 to point number 10, you'll be revising on May 16th, right? On that same day, once you finish point number 6 to 10, just take a minute to revise whatever you've done on the prior day. So this will help us to remember, revise. You're not putting so much of effort in memorizing. I'm not asking you to memorize, but make sure you remember, because you revise often. Okay, it is only going to take 5 minutes for 5 marks every day. Just 10 days you do this, and then before the examination you can do a revision of this. Okay, so here, as I have already outlined what this topic is all about, it is just a compilation of everything that has happened in India into a very not a comprehensive one. It is just a that's all, just a list that they are giving you. So the first topic is status of Indian economy pre-independence. So pre-independence, I'll tell you what is pre-independence. And pre-independence, we can talk even about 1200 AD or 1100 AD or maybe 1300, 14, 1500, 1600, 1700. No, they're not talking about that. Since they are clearly giving you pre-independence era, the independence we got in 1947. Okay, so pre-independence, they are constricting, or they are restricting their number of years. Here is about 200 years prior to independence. So we're starting from the invasion of East India Company. So East India Company ruled us for 100 years, and after that Britain government started to rule us for 100 years, and at the end 1947 we got independence. So in that era, they're trying to tell us that initially, before the invasion of East India Company and all, okay, India was a very wealthy country, okay, in terms of production, in terms of successful implementation of urban development and all that. India was always a forerunner, and they're trying to tell you that 1/3 to 1/4 of the world's wealth was with India. Okay, this is the most important one. What are they trying to tell you? Nearly 1/3, nearly 1/3 to 1/4 of the world's wealth was with India. Okay, it was when the time was between 1st to 17th century. In between 1st to 17th century, it is believed that nearly 1/3 to 1/4 of the entire world's wealth was created by India. In terms of creation, we're not talking about coal mines, we're not talking about gas, we're not talking about the mountains and the natural resources. Okay, we're just talking about the production ability of people as a country. In that, India held nearly 1/3 to 1/4 of the total wealth created of all the world. Okay, of all the countries in the world. Okay, this is one. And then we're talking about a book written by Kautilya in the Gupta Empire. Okay, so who is that Gupta? It is King Chandragupta Maurya. So in the Mauryan Empire, this King Chandragupta, no, under his regime, there was one writer who wrote this book called as Artha Sastra. So this Artha Sastra was like a book for the ruling party, the book for the ruler, the book on how to rule the country, how to rule your regime. Okay, that's what they're trying to tell you. So Artha Sastra is a book name, and the writer is Kautilya, and he is a person in the Chandragupta Maurya's ministry. Okay, and then they're trying to tell you that Artha means material prosperity, and they're trying to tell you that Artha does it also means the means of subsistence of humanity, and they're trying to explain to you that Artha means the material prosperity. What is it? Material prosperity. So this book brings material prosperity if it is followed properly in the ruler. The ruler has to follow all these rules and regulations and all the points given in this book. As a result, it will make the kingdom better, okay, in terms of management and all that. So this is one important thing. And who is the writer? Kautilya. The book is Arthasastra. The empire, who was the king? It was Chandragupta Maurya. That's all. And back in those days, most important feature in an economy would be the land, because 100% it would have been an agrarian society. Okay, like today we have insurance sector, financial sector, we have a lot of industrial sectors. No, back in those days, these industrial sector and financial sector will be having only very meager importance. So much of the importance will be given to agriculture. Since agriculture is given more importance, land would be the primary matter of concern for every empire and emperor. And that is why even here Arthasastra talks about fruitfully maintaining and using land, because land is the basic how do you call it, is the basic tool for the empire's growth. Without land, there is no harvest. Without harvest, there is no taxes that could be collected from people. So, an empire or an emperor, okay, emperor in the regime, okay, in his regime, okay, can bring a lot of positivity, can bring a lot of success, can bring a lot of wealth by emphasizing the importance of land, and how do you manage the land, and how the land is being given to different people, and what is the landlordship, or how tenants are occupying the land, and how much rent are they paying. And in fact, we all know that there was zamindari system, raitwari system in India, okay, which actually ruled much part of Indian history, because since India was predominantly an agrarian society back in those days, land captured a very important matter of concern. And how the land is being disbursed, or how it is distributed among the people of India, made a lot of difference in how power was actually distributed, in how the wealth was actually distributed, in how the economic power was actually distributed. So here, since the book is only talking about land, it doesn't mean land was a big thing. Even today we have land, but today most, how do you call, lot of reliance and lot of emphasizing things, or lot of emphasis on it is not given on land. It is being given on artificial intelligence, it's given on chat GPT. Why? Because crypto coins or the bitcoins that we talk today, and all the other things captures more importance in today's world. Here, in today's world, land is not the most crucial factor to determine a country's wealth or success. Today, people who advance in terms of artificial intelligence as the ruler for the entire world, that country is going to capture the market in almost everything. So today, more reliance is given on artificial intelligence, chat GPT, and all those things. Like that, back in those days, land was a critical mass of success factor. It was a critical mass that's going to determine who's going to succeed, that's going to determine who's going to hold wealth and all that. And that's why this book specially meant its effort for how to fruitfully maintain and use land, okay. And then this was also a very important thing. This book comprised 7 important vital elements, namely, first, king. Of course, king is a very important factor. Number 2, ministers, people who are all well knowledged, because a king would be by succession. For example, if I'm the father, my son would be this king. If I'm the father, I mean, like, I'm the king, then my next king would be my son, okay. So here, to become a king, there is no specific knowledge that's required. Mostly, even if you possess no knowledge, you possess no rank, or you possess no special skills and all that, even then you become a king because you are my son, that's all. And of course, there might be 3 or 4 sons, and there might be competition amongst them, like who to become king and all that. That was a natural competition. But that natural competition did not bring the lots of youth, competitive young young talents from around the country to come and participate, and who has to become the king. Like today in democracy, we have anybody can nominate their name for election, and you can become a leader. Today, at least, there is a chance that's existing. Anybody can become the leader if they want to, and if they possess the right quality and all that. But back in those days, to become a king, you need not possess any other qualities. The main how do you call, the main quality that's most required, without which you will never be able to become a king, is king's son, that's all. So here we are talking about king, ministers, and then of course it's like chat GPT and AI today, how artificial intelligence is given most importance today. Like that, back in those days, farmland were given importance. And then fortresses, like how do you build your empire, how do you build your fort, how do you build your palace and all that, to keep your empire safe from the how do you call, from your neighbor countries or from your neighbor regimes. You have to defend yourself and all that. So you have fortresses. Treasury, it's all about your money management and all that. Military, of course, your defense forces. And then the allies, how do you maintain a friendly or cordial relationship with all your surrounding people, or surrounding regimes, or surrounding parts, okay, those ruled by other kings, okay, those things should be kept under your surveillance. So these are all written in this book, that's all. And then what is it? Of course, pre-independence era was divided into two things. One is the period through which East India Company ruled. East India Company ruled from 1757 to 1858, and from 1858 to 1947, Britain, that is the government of Britain, ruled us. Okay, and then everything else is just a history. You can just give it a read. That's all. And then they are giving you about, of course, we know about zamindari system, no doubt. They are talking about zamindari system, and then how Britain given a lot of pressure to India. Britain posed a lot of pressure on India, like they wanted to sell all the products from Britain to India, and Indian manufacturing sector was killed literally by the Britain government because Indian exports were charged a lot of taxes. If you want export from India, a lot of taxes was imposed on that, and the imports into India, it was very cheap. So even Indian people preferred imported goods because it was cheap, and also people wanted to relate themselves with that of the westernized world. So all these things they are talking about here. Okay, and after that they are also talking about the East Indian Company rule, which lasted for 100 years, which ended in 1858. Okay, only after 1850, when Britain government came into the rule of Indian country, they wanted to increase the Indian situation as a producer. So they wanted India to be a producer in terms of jute or cotton, or to bring the factories to India, where Indian laborers and the Indian resources are being used. For example, here we have cotton, here we have jute production. So the Britain government wanted to produce jute, the Britain government wanted to produce the cotton textile industries and all that in India, and they wanted to export it to different parts of world. So this kind of modern industrial enterprises in colonial India started to grow only after this 1850. So here they are talking about the cotton mill industry brought by the Britain government. We had 9 million spindles. This is a very important thing. We had 9 million spindles. Okay, and we had 5th position in the number of spindles. How many spindles we have? We had 9 million spindles, and India was actually at the 5th position in the number of spindles we had. And this is also the largest in the world, what the jute industry. Okay, and then we also had, see, the 8th in the iron industry, 8th. These are all information, that's all. Okay, these things doesn't have any technical conceptual understanding at all. You really have to remember certain things. And just before 1929 Great Depression, India was the 12th largest what? Industrialized country, measured in terms of value of manufactured goods. Okay, 12th largest industrialized country. And then what this one? 0.4% of the total population in 1900 to 1.4% of the total population in 1941. So in a gap of 40 years, there was a 40-year gap. Within this 40 years of gap, they're talking about pre-independence. No, so here, considering it's a slow progress, in 1900, number of people who got job in manufacturing sector was only 0.4%, okay, of total people. And in 1940s, what happened is total population who's engaged in manufacturing sector is 1.4%. So totally in the span of 40 years, okay, we're talking about pre-independence only. In the span of 40 years, the total number of people involved in the production, okay, increased by just 1%, 0.4% to 1.4%. And I'm telling you, with regard to the exams point of view, I'm telling you this pre-independence era does not have much importance. They are not giving so much of importance when it comes to pre-independence era. So if you get just only one question from this portion of pre-independence era, I would say it's a big thing. Even if they are trying to ask you any question from this area, they would ask you like how many number of spindles we had, and what is the position of the number of spindles we had was 9 million, right? So we possessed the 5th largest place. And then they're talking about jute. In terms of raw jute consumed, we were largest in the world, okay, in the 19th century. and then iron industry was ranked 8th in that time. Okay, in the 19th, these information pertains to 19th century. I'm very sorry, I'm not feeling, at my best in health, and that's why I'm not able to properly communicate things to you. I'm very sorry. I'll be okay within a day or two, and then the voice or the way I'm actually under some medication, so that medication is actually taking a toll on my delivery of the content. Okay, please do adjust for a day or two. I'll be back. Just before the Great Depression, we had this 12th largest industrialized country. So what are the questions that might be asked in examination? If at all one question is chosen from this pre-independence era, 9 million spindles, that is one. And then 5th largest in terms of spindle, other one. Next one, we are talking about jute. In jute, we are number 1. We were number 1. Okay, and then in terms of iron industry, we were a 5th, 8th. Okay. Just before Great Depression, Indian industry, in the terms of industrialized country, India's industrialized position was at its 12th place. And then what else? In 1941, 1.4% of the total people got involved in the factory employment, that is in the manufacturing sector. If they want to ask you very easy supply questions, they'll go to Kautilya's Arthasastra and this one. Artha means material prosperity. Or who was the king when Kautilya wrote Arthasastra? Something like that. Kautilya is also called as Chanakya. Okay. And this one, maybe back in those days, between 1st and 17th century, India had dash to dash, or 1/3 to 1/4 of the total world's wealth. That's all. This is the end of it. Pre-independence is over. And when it comes to post-independence, they're talking about what was the situation of Indian country during 1947. In 1947, the literacy ratio was just 18% and life expectancy was 32. Do you know what is life expectancy? They've given you only 2 numbers, and I don't think it's so important for the examination because they are giving so much of concentration from the exam point of view. They are giving a lot of importance only for the last 3 topics in this chapter, which is about after 1991. Okay, after liberalization, privatization, globalization, we must have studied, in +1 and +2, we must have studied about the LPG measures, liberalization, privatization, and globalization. After this liberalization, privatization, globalization done, only after 1991, okay, they are asking questions. In that segment only, they are asking us a lot of questions. Here, if they want to ask questions, there are only 2 numbers. One is on the eve of independence, our literacy ratio was 18%. I mean, out of 100 people, only 18 people knew to write their name in Tamil or English or whatever language. Okay, and then barely 32 years of life expectancy, which means any child which is born in India, on an average, it is expected to live only 32 years. Okay, if anybody is living beyond 32 years, it's above average. Okay, but today our average life expectancy is beyond 64 or 65 years for Tamil Nadu, basically. Generally, for India itself, it has exceeded 60%. 60 to 65% has been exceeded. Okay, in terms of life expectancy. And then they're talking about the Planning Commission. Of course, Planning Commission was one of the most important tool which we copied from Soviet Russia, like Soviet Union. They had that Planning Commission, they had that centralized planning, what is to be done, how to be done, and which sector should be given more priority. Everything will be decided by government. And also they are trying to emphasize that after independence, whether it's Nehruvian model or Gandhiji's equity distribution and all that, every model came under scanner because here the book by itself, it's trying to emphasize this chapter, I would say. It's trying to emphasize that we followed as a country after 1947, okay, the party which ruled India from 1947 until 1991, the government or the central government as a whole. Okay, the emphasis in this chapter I'm telling you, they're saying that we were too socialistic, we did not give any importance to, I mean, as a country, they're trying to tell you, okay, as a country, they say this country did not give space for private entrepreneurs to grow. Private sector was limited, public sector was always given priority. Everything was under the control of government. This actually led to negative growth, and there was a very, very, very modest growth after independence. Only 3%, only around 3% we grew year on year or year on year. So this statement, generally, you guys are only studying about the Indian history for the first time or for the second time. So when you come across this emphasizing of our country only took the socialism with them, and that has yielded only negative returns and all that, don't take Indian post-independence growth taken for granted. Okay, don't take it for granted. Don't think that we should not have followed socialism, we should have followed capitalism, or don't think that everything that has been said in this study material is unbiased. Okay, there is a lot of bias in the book. Okay, they say it has only yielded a lot of negative growth or maybe something like that, but it's not so true. Imagine you are being ruled by a country which is predominantly a capitalist country, okay, and which is predominantly for the first 100 years we were ruled as a country. India was ruled by a company, no, it was just one company, East India Company, that's all. So for the first 100 years, India, a very, very, very successful nation, was taken under control by a company which is a private enterprise. So the power of private enterprise to just gulp an entire nation for 100 years would be so threatening for a country. And then after that came Britain, which ruled India for 100 years. This again is a capitalistic country where private entrepreneurs are given undue high importance. And this kind of 200 years of exploitation, definitely, if you and I were in that situation, we would have done the same. We would not have let any single company to rule our country, because East India Company ruled us for 100 years. We did not know what to do, right? And after that, a capitalist country's government, like Britain government, ruled us for 100 years. We were totally helpless. And once we got our independence, all we wanted to do was to alienate ourselves from the ideology of capitalism and to alienate ourselves from the ideology of private ownership. So we obviously followed the principles of socialism, where everything is taken under control by the government of India and everything is given to everyone. So the government wanted to make sure that the distribution of wealth, the distribution of income, the distribution of food, the distribution of everything that's there in the country should be more diverse, more to all. Equity was given more importance, and that's why we took up socialism, and we had this planned modernization or planning commission, which helped to draft a policy for the next 5 years. So we had this first 5-year plan, second 5-year plan, third 5-year plan, because when we study the Indian economy, like back 5 to 6 years back, the study material was not this. It was all explaining how the first 5-year plan worked, second 5-year plan, and all the 5-year plans was given in detail. And today the books are just evolving, but in no place we should be coming to a conclusion that maybe the leaders of our country have taken a bad decision. No, it was not a bad decision. It was the decision that anybody in that situation could have taken. And that I really want to reiterate to you, because once you are being haunted by a ghost, you will be threatened by its existence. Whether that ghost is inside your country or outside your country will be threatened, right? In the same way, a private company ruled our country. A capitalist country ruled our country. So we were totally threatened by the concepts of a private entity and by the concept of capitalism. So obviously, we were more into a closed economy. We were so much into socialism. We were so much into everything should be ruled by government. I'm not telling you that's correct. I'm not telling you that's the right way to move ahead. But that was what the sensible decision that the leaders could have taken, that they took. But that yielded a lot of negative effects. Of course, it yielded positive effects and negative effects. And of course, they are also trying to tell you, we had a policy called as Industrial Policy Resolution 1948. And of course, the planning commission was copied from socialist country only. They had the centralized planning, and that we copied here as planning commission. And of course, we had now today we have only two sections where private ownership or private investment is totally not allowed. That is, one is atomic energy and the other one is railways. Even in railways, not every section or every segment of railways is owned by government. No, it is not. Majority of the portions or majority of the segments are given to private entity. Only the core segment of railways is being held by the government, and parts of atomic energy is also held by government today. But when they discuss about the arms and ammunition, so these words are very different to me, because we have studied these three sectors as defense, atomic energy and railways. But today, instead of the word defense, they have given you arms and ammunition, because that is giving me uh, a picture that the word defense is all just disappeared, and then they're giving you only arms and ammunition. So today, with the today's students, if I were to explain arms and ammunition, I do not know how to explain. Arms and ammunition is especially a tool for defense. Today, this arms and ammunition has been given to private public partnership, or where private investment is allowed in this section. So here, arms and ammunition, when we give this to private sector, it doesn't sound very alarming, because the name is given as arms and ammunition. But imagine we are giving the defense sector to private parties. That might sound alarming, right? And I really do not know why the word defense has been replaced by arms and ammunition. But however, that's how the study material says today. That's okay. The policies in 1950 were guided by two economic philosophies. Of course, I've told you, Nehru's visualization of heavy industry. He wanted India to become a very industrial country. He wanted India to be like Russia. He wanted India to be like China. He wanted India to be very, very, very heavily investing in industries. And Gandhi, on the other hand, he wanted cottage industries, small scale industries. He wanted the development from the grassroots level. And Nehru wanted to draft the policies and implement the policies and monitor the policies in terms of macro management, in terms of the country level, where he wanted to make India a very, very, very heavily industrial oriented country. And here they're trying to give you an information regarding industrial policy resolution in the year 1956. Okay. See, this is one important thing. Hindu growth rate was a modest 3.5%. Modest means it's a very, very, very small growth rate, or very meager growth rate. Meager means, how do you call meager? Very, very, very little, belittling, belittle, or it's a very, very little growth rate, and that is why it's called as a Hindu growth rate. Okay. So this Hindu growth rate is referred to 3.5% of modest growth rate recorded. This is for the first 3 decades. That is from 1950 to 1980. The growth rate for every decade is only 3.5%. Okay. For example, from 1950 to 51, what is the growth rate? 3%. From 51 to 52, what is the annual growth rate? 3%. Like that, from 1950 to 1980, the average annual growth rate is only 3.5%, and that is called as Hindu growth rate. Mark this as very, very, very important. This is asked in your 1 mark. Okay. And then here, yes, in the year 1966 and 67, because significant importance was given to introduction and the upgradation of industrial sector, here agrarian society or the agricultural segment, okay, has lost its importance, and as a result, in 1966, okay, or between the year 1960 to 66, India as a country faced a lot of drought, monsoon failure. As a result, we were not self-sufficient. Food grains were to be imported, and even America helped us, gave us food. Okay, the food aid was given by US under PL 480. This might also be important, PL 480. And this year, okay, between the year 1996 and 97, okay, we introduced a policy. It's called as Green Revolution. So this Green Revolution concentrated on the productivity of wheat, okay. So they wanted to increase the production of wheat multifold, okay. So this is Green Revolution, and there is also White Revolution where dairy sector was concentrated, but here in our book it is not given. So you don't have to remember that. But Green Revolution is a very, 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 very important thing which happened in 1966. And then of course you can remember this, the government of India nationalized the banks, okay. 14 banks were nationalized in 1969, and after that in 1986 banks were nationalized. Just remember this, try to remember this, first 14 and then plus 6. Imagine 14 plus 6, 20. So 14 was nationalized in the year 1969, and then after that in 1986 banks were nationalized. That's all. And then there are several other information which is given in a very fast mode, okay. For example, see here, oil shocks of 1973-79, major drought 1966-67, and then 3 wars 62-65-71. These are all not given to you for your understanding also. They are just mentioning these things, okay. For example, for you to understand what are the major droughts that has happened in 1966, 66 and 67, it requires at least 2 paragraphs of studies. And then oil shocks of 1973 and 79, you really have to read at least 3 to 4 paragraphs to understand oil shocks, cause, effect, what happened, what is the consequence that we faced in India and all that. And then 3 wars, at least the name of the war should be given if they were to emphasize all those things. They are not here to emphasize any of these things. They are just giving it to you, that's all, okay. And then here the era of reforms. Actually, I'm telling you only from this part, okay, questions are being asked, okay. Actual liberalization, privatization and globalization happened in the year 1991, but they are calling 1981 to 1989, okay, this period of 80s as early liberalization. I'm very sorry, health is a very important factor, man. Whatever you want to do, you want to play games, you want to go on a vacation, you have to go on work mode, anything to do, anything, health is the most important thing. And if there is even a small distraction in your health, it's going to take a lot of toll. So here, which is considered as pre or early liberalization, it is 1981 to 1989. It is called as reformation or reforms by stealth, and this is on inward reforms, okay, inward oriented trade and investment practices. Just remember, 1980s is a period that is called as early liberalization period, okay. And then average growth rate, that is GDP, for the 6th and 7th 5-year plan is 5.7 and 5.8. Very, 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 very low growth rate is between 1950 to 1980. Aha, you know, 5 80, which is 3.5. This is called as Hindu growth rate. In the exam, they might ask you, Hindu growth rate is named so because, do you think it is because our country is a Hindustan? No, it's not that. It is just named as Hindu growth rate, which has registered a very, very, very nominal or meager growth rate of 3.5%. Okay. Just remember this. What do you mean by broad banding? Broad banding would mean if a country is, if a company is given license for production of car, okay, and then they want to convert their production of car into production of truck. They don't want to produce car, they want to produce truck. Back in those days, to produce car they need to get a license, to produce a truck they need to get a separate license. But after the introduction of broad banding, Broadbanding in the sense, your band is just broadening such that you can produce car, truck, lorry, anything within that band. So that is called as broadbanding. It might be asked in examination. Okay, remember this. Okay, and then SEBI. Today we have you must have studied in your commerce book, right? SEBI and all its powers, duties, blah, 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 everything. So that SEBI was introduced in the year 1989, and it was statutorily, it was brought into existence in the year 1992. I mean, the SEBI Act was passed in the year 1992, I guess. So just remember, it's April 12, 1988. See here, non-statutory body was established, and after that, the act was passed in the year 1992, if I'm right. Okay, after this liberalization, we had this 20 crore to 100 crores. MRTP, that MRTP limit, like monopolistic restrictive trade practices is now replaced, right? MRTP is just as abolished, and all the subjects under MRTP is now brought down under FEMA. Those things is not necessary for a foundation student. Okay, just leave all those things. See here, this is very, very, very important. In the year 1990, the rupee was depreciated. The value of rupee was depreciated by the central government on its own accord to the extent of 30%. That, just remember this 30% and the year 1990. So this section that we have studied now is only called as the era of reforms, and this section particularly relates to 1982, 1989. That's all. Okay, this entire 10.3 is pertaining to early reform period. Early reform period. That's all. I have not seen even one question from this 10.3 except for this early reforms. 1980s is a period called as early reforms. That was the only question given in the book bag so far. But I think this might be a question. If I were a paper setter, I would ask this question. MRTP reforms, MRTP firms. Asset limit above which firms were subject to MRTP regulation was raised from 20 to 100 crores. Asset limit. They will time and again tell you private entities were not given any chances and only public sector was acting, and public sectors overemphasize only on the government's involvement in production of everything. Actually, see who enjoyed monopoly. They would tell you massive in size. Who enjoyed monopoly? Governmental controls. Government only enjoyed monopoly. Tariff, quota, all these things, they're trying to emphasize that government companies and government control over every section, every production sector yielded only unexpected results, because they wanted to increase the productivity, but in fact over government control brought only counterproductive situation. That's what they're trying to tell you here. And then the actual reforms that happened in 1991, I'm so surprised to not see our Prime Minister of that time. It was Manmohan Singh. Sorry, it was not Prime Minister, he was the Finance Minister. I'm sorry, I'm not very sure, but it was the time of Manmohan Singh. he must be the finance minister, I guess. During that time, this reforms, economic reforms of liberalization, privatization, globalization happened, okay. And it was economic reforms under, the government was Narasimha Rao government, and the liberalization policies happened because when we had the service tax and all that, it was introduced under Manmohan Singh. We usually have who is the finance minister, because today we have Nirmala Sitharaman ma'am, right, who's the finance minister. So it's very comfortable for us to know what are the policies introduced and who was at the helm of the introduction and all that. Because at the time of independence, we studied about that Nehru policy and Gandhi policy. Beyond that, we have studied about not the leaders, not about the leaders. So here we're talking about the India embarked on a bold set of economic reforms in 1991 under Narasimha Rao government. And here the finance minister, I guess it should be Manmohan Singh. I'll confirm it with you. You can also confirm it online. The causes attributed to the immediate need for such a drastic change are: one is balance of payment. We were importing so much, we were not exporting a lot. As a result, a lot of balance of payment crisis was there. That was one thing. See here, 1.2 billion was only there with us, which was barely sufficient for 2 weeks of imports. Beyond that, we had no dollars at all. Oil price increase was there, so we had to steadily import oil. When we kept on importing oil, obviously a balance of payment took a very, very, very weak position. So these are all the situation, or these were all the conditions which triggered economic reforms, okay. So the economic reforms is popularly called as LPG, that is liberalization, privatization and globalization. And see, this is a very, very, very important question given in the book back and in the exam also you'll get, okay. They're trying that the reforms, popularly known as LPG, spelled a major shift in the economic philosophy and fundamental change in approach, and had two major objectives. So it's very simple. What is this? LPG objectives. What are the two major objectives of LPG? Number one, fiscal deficit. You have to reduce the fiscal deficit. Okay. Number two, to become more market friendly or market oriented economy. So what are two objectives? Number one, move from socialism to capitalism. Adha solranga. Number two, since you are doing a lot of, government is spending more and more and more, government expenditure is increasing and government revenue collection is decreasing. As a result, we are facing fiscal deficit. So in order to reduce the fiscal deficit and to convert the economy from socialism to capitalism is the main objective of LPG, BOP crisis and all that. And we have fiscal reforms. Since I'm not feeling that healthy to continue the class, I'll take a break and come back. Please, please, please bear with me. Since your exam is also nearing, I was not even, I don't even want to take a lot of days off, and that's why I tried to, record the classes today. Just give me some time. I'll record the next class for you, maybe with a better sense of mind. Thank you so much for your patience listening. If you have any doubts until this 10.3, okay, before this fiscal reforms, do write to me, okay. Thank you so much.